Welcome to Entrepreneurs Are Leaders, and today we have a guest, Michelle, which is a licensed clinical psychology and the founder of Alchemy Performance Consulting. So, Michelle, tell us, what are the 5 steps to remove stress from our lives?
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Are Leaders podcast with Harry Sardinas. Interviews with world's most influential entrepreneurs that share tips about how to grow your business exponentially. Charismatic speaking, leadership, branding, marketing strategies designed to help you monetize your knowledge, find true happiness, and manifest your goals and dreams.
Okay. Yeah. So isn't that the question everybody wants answered, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm here to really bust everybody's fantasies, because you can't. Like, number one, you can't. And I know that might sound really, really harsh. In my line of work, I often am giving some hard truths, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't manage it or you can't
And deal with it. Absolutely.
So you absolutely can't remove it. And I always say to all of my clients or the people that I work with and speak with, if that's your goal, you're already setting yourself up for failure. You can't reduce the stress. There's also 2 different kinds of stress. There's distress and stress, and then there's eustress. Eustress is positive stressors. So, for example, maybe somebody's getting married and they're very excited about getting married. That's a positive stressor, but it's still a stressor on the body, right? And there are negative stressors that may come with that life event as well. So my first step is like, you can't. You have to acknowledge that. You have to look that in the face and confront it and say, you know what, stress is a part of my life. It's here to stay. But what can I do to manage it? How can I reduce it? And really in that first step, I think it's kind of acknowledging it, deciding, okay, I can learn how to live with this, right? Like, we have to learn to live with people we don't like. We can learn to live with stress we don't like. But also, how is stress, looking at like, how does stress actually serve us, motivate us, and in some ways is like a gift. It can be a motivator. It can make us like feel pressured to do different things, become, more achievement oriented. So what I say to people is like, look at what's causing that. And once you identify it, look at what's causing it. What in your past life has helped you reduce or manage it? People often are really afraid of like what's going to happen in the future or the stress that they may feel. Let's look back at the things that we've already come through. We're all 100% successful at getting through every day of our lives thus far. So you're already doing something right. Let's look back and say, oh, wow, how was I able to reduce that before? Or if I feel like I wasn't particularly successful, what didn't work? So you're really getting in the nitty gritty and trying to figure out like, what's my relationship with these stressors? Second step is really like, okay, if you don't like how you're feeling, how do you want to feel? What do you want your life to look like? Again, so often we're thinking about the things that we don't want to happen. Or again, like in my work, if I'm working with some of the athletes, they're afraid that they're not going to do well in their next big competition. Neuropsychologists have known this for years, that the more we think that something bad is going to happen or something isn't going to go well, we actually reenact that on a subconscious level. And our body, our nervous system responds to it as if those bad things are happening in real time. So again, how do you want to feel? If we're focusing so much on what we don't want to feel like, we're probably going to feel like that. So imagining a world or a day or a week where you're like, wow, I was proud of myself. I knocked off 3 different tasks that I've been putting off, or I really, I was nervous, but I went into this big, fundraising meeting and it went well. It was successful. These are the things that didn't go so great. These are the things that were kind of neutral. These are the things that I felt really, really good about. So identifying what it is that you want to feel. And then once you really learn what it is that you want to feel and what you want to have happen, you're in a better position to create a plan. So that would be really the third step. I'm going to look at this and I'm going to make a plan. I don't know if you've ever heard of the idea of SMART goals. I feel like that's something that's often talked about in business or sport or other things. But SMART goals, it's an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, it's relevant, and it's time sensitive. So you break down a goal and you say, okay, well, how do I achieve those different letters, right? How do I make that goal fit those things so that it keeps me accountable to something that's specific? We often think about goals and they're way too broad. What we want to achieve is way too broad. Then we become really overwhelmed and we're not able to kind of stay on task. So the SMART goals kind of helps you keep that in a nice little package. And along with that, I feel like with your goal, you also have to identify what are the things I can control and what can't I control. The things you need to know what you can't control because they're there. And if you think that there aren't going to be things that you have no control over, again, you're kind of setting yourself up, right? But when we do that, when we look at what we can control and what we can't control, we also have a little bit more agency over what it is that we're actually doing and what we don't really need to worry about. So, like, for example, I'm a runner working with a bunch of runners. Some people are getting ready for a race. You really can't control the weather. So you have to train in all different types of weather. You got to train in all of that, and then you've got to be ready the day of. But if you're training in it and you know that you don't know what it's going to be like, unless you're somewhere where the weather is pretty consistent, you're kind of prepping yourself for that unknown. And that is the controllable. The controllable is I don't really know. So I'm going to train lots of different things. I'm going to kind of get my mindset in a place where it's like anything can happen, and I'm ready for that. The things that you can control are, again, how much you train, what you're eating, how you're sleeping, all of those things that we can really like map out. That's what you focus on. That's where you put your energy. The fourth thing I would say is attitude. So often people, and I'm in no way am I saying like there's no room to have a little bit of self-pity or to kind of have a bad day. We all have those. But that has to be like time limited, right? If we recall in the very beginning, I sort of said, let's acknowledge that we can't get rid of stress. We've got to acknowledge we're not always going to be at our best. We're going to have some bad days. Sometimes we're going to be down. Sometimes we're going to be, just not really feeling like we're as successful as we want to be, or things aren't going quite our way. So we sort of like give ourselves 5 minutes, 10 minutes, give yourself a little pity party, and then you move on. Like, what do I need to do to sort of like pull myself up, and take responsibility, right? Like every single one of us is where we are, for what we put into it. And that's not to say, when I say that, I'm not overlooking the fact that there's different levels of privilege and there are different adversities that people are going through. That's a whole other story. But when you're kind of like playing a victim, or you're, really feeling like people are out to get you all the time, that's not a motivator. So we've got to really think about, again, what can I control? What do I have control over? What do I have control of? What do I have control over? And are there people that can help me with this as well, right? Surrounding yourself with positive people that are going to push you, people that are going to share the hard truths. We need that in our lives. And then the last part I would say is work really hard and also have fun. Because if you're not having fun, none of this works. So that can look different for each person. But if there isn't an element of enjoyment or playfulness in what we're doing, then I feel like you tend to see people like go downhill. So whatever that looks like, we got to identify that for ourselves.
Wow, that was very powerful, Michelle. Thank you so much. And I think that stress is qualified like an illness, right? I think that I'm just stressed, and people think that that they're not sick, right? That this is not an illness, but it's actually is qualified as an illness, so it has to be treated as soon as possible. Especially because our body have the capacity, on the same way that sometimes have the capacity to heal itself. We can also damage ourselves. And a lot of entrepreneurs that we interview, because they're running a business, they have a certain level of stress, and
Mhm.
that's if they don't release this emotional pain, this emotional is literally become a physical pain, can end up with cancer, can end up with another type of illness. I think it's because your defense mechanisms go down, right? And
Mhm.
then now you any other disease is easy to develop, and so being stressed uh, is not just something that can that, well, if I don't deal with it, something that's okay. It can sometimes be can lead to other illnesses, and you can self destroy. So how what methods, or how can we raise more aware to even to women, to entrepreneurs out there, that this is something that had to be deal with. And again, a lot of people they want to make a million, they want to make money, they want to progress in life, and at the same time, parallel with that goals, or they want to have the big house, or they want to have
Mhm.
the nice car, and parallel to that goal, it got a certain level of stress attached to it. And let me tell you something, all the millionaires that I know, they will give away all the wealth for one more day of life, right? So when it comes to health, it's priceless. What it comes to it. So the whole point is how we can be present and aware, yeah. And if the people need some help, or how people can actually identify that they do have an illness, because the problem is that it's a symptom, not asymptomatic. You don't have any pain, you just
Right,
have a
right,
stress. Maybe you cannot sleep
right.
a little bit, you cannot do that, but people don't recognize this as an illness because they don't have pain. There is no, you don't go to hospital to be treated if you have a stress. So it's an asymptomatic illness, very dangerous, that can lead to another um, big illnesses. And because people don't people think, well, I'm just stressed out, it's no big deal, and I can go on with my life. So how share with us how dangerous it is be living with the stress and being having a stress among our life for so many years. People reflect in different ways. Some people start to smoke, some people start to drink, now they have liver problem, they have lungs problem, you name it. So um, can can you share with us, the concept that, or bring more clarity? Is it really an illness? It's not a big deal. Should we be taking this seriously, or not? What is your view in all that I just share with you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think you bring up a lot of really good points. And like I was saying in the beginning, we can't remove stress. It is part of life. We can't remove anxiety. Anxiety is a very, anxiety, depression. Those are human emotions. We
Absolutely.
wouldn't,
Come
we
with
wouldn't be
us.
human if we didn't have them, right? And there's a difference between experiencing a little bit of anxiety or stress or depression versus, like, to your point, there's an accumulative effect. And, I think different cultures respond to these things differently. Here in the States, what I've observed, right, we often live in a very hustle culture. What I feel is often really like extremes. And so there's a lot of, it's either this or it's that. You're either stressed or you're not. For example, somebody may be feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for my vacation or my holiday. I'm going to go and I'm going to sit around a pool and it's going to be great, or the ocean. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to do any of these things. And it's so the opposite of what their day to day is when they're working. So it's a pendulum swing. And then when they return, the reentry is really, and I'm dealing with this a lot right now after the holidays, the reentry into the typical day to day is like a smack in the face. And what I hear so frequently is, it's almost like my vacation. I didn't even go on vacation. I also hear I need a vacation from my vacation. And so there's this, I like to think about a lot about like the expectations, and what I also say are like the realities and the fantasies. So what I'm speaking of when I talk about the fantasies is in our mind, sometimes we're aware of the fantasy we're creating, sometimes we're not, right? But then when we go into a situation and it doesn't fit what we didn't realize we were expecting, we're like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. That's a fantasy. The reality is what actually happens. And so I think oftentimes people's fantasy is like, if I do this, then I've arrived and I've done it and I'm not going to have stress. Then they go to the next situation and they're overstimulated. They have their phones and they're getting text message, they're getting emails, they're taking calls, they're using whatever internal office chat messages on their computers all the time. So they're getting input from lots of different modes of technology all at once when they're trying to get one task done, and they're overstimulated. And that makes sense because that's overstimulating. That we're not designed to really operate that way. So again, going back to just like, different cultures do things a little bit differently. Here in the States, again, we're go, go, go all the time. We don't really take breaks. And then the wellness industry is kind of like, slow down, slow down. But those things are in conflict with one another. So you have to actually make that a habit, make that a routine. And just because maybe our culture, the hustle culture, is saying, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to, make that meeting, you got to respond to that email. When you're on break, you're responding to emails too. That is a real pressure. We as individuals have to really set those boundaries. And I feel like that is really difficult for people to set the boundaries, really know how to respond when maybe those boundaries are being threatened, and recognize that it does have an effect on your health and your well-being. So if we're not setting the boundaries and we're not taking care of ourselves day in and day out, when there's with the smaller things, what we would call like small daily stressors, then when there's like a bigger stressor, we're not equipped to handle that either because we're not practicing that skill in the day to day. So what I say with people is like, pick one thing. If you're trying to just change your whole lifestyle and work and do all those things at the same time, you're setting yourself up. So pick one thing. If any of my clients listen to this, they'll chuckle because I say this all the time. I'll ask them, so what kind of toothbrush do you use? I'll ask you, do you use like one of the battery operated toothbrush, or do you use a manual one? So the manual, right? You gotta 2 minutes, brush your teeth. But when you use the battery operated, it's 2 minutes. It's set to 2 minutes. So I ask them, start with when you're brushing your teeth. I don't know how often you brush your teeth. I know I brush my teeth multiple times a day. So that could be anywhere from 4 to 6 minutes of the day. That could have a big impact, even though you might not think it does. So I'll ask them, okay, tomorrow morning, take your toothbrush. And when you are brushing your teeth, I want you to just sit, lay on your bed, whatever it is that you're doing. I don't want you making your lunch. I don't want you making the bed or making your coffee. Just like lay and pay attention to the five senses. How does your body feel as it's laying on your bed or sitting on the tub or whatever it is that you're sitting on? And just sit there. And most people are like, oh, okay, I can do this. And then they come back and they say, I could not do that. 2 minutes was way too long. So if you're not willing to like commit and take ownership over 2 minutes, it's already going to be harder to like commit to like a healthcare routine and a wellness routine. But it really is that serious. We have to believe that it's serious in order to see the benefits. And then going again, like if we go back to that first question, right? Like, what are the 5 steps? What is making this particularly hard for me? What are the obstacles to that? What are the rewards to it? Do I even believe that this will have an effect? Because if you don't, that's our starting spot. But stress, it does. It can have really significant impacts on individuals, whether that be, health, heart health, brain health, relationship health. So it really is up to us to educate ourselves about that and what the effects of stress are and how that looks particularly for us.
So, but then, Michelle, let's talk about sport because for me, works really good going for a walk. Yeah, play tennis to practice some stuff, but some sports. But in US, we find out, that um, everybody in Europe, London, when I'm based, right, it's very easy to go for a walk. You just get out of the especially if you live in the city, you have walking distance parks. You can go literally for a walk, yeah. Even when it's winter, right? However, we find in US that the lifestyle, you have to get out of the house, take a car, move around. So even if you go to a gym, you have to take the car. And I think that, what do you think the influence in a sport? Because what I feel like is that every time that you join a community, whether you play, I play tennis, that helped me a lot. Definitely going for a walk is something that I love to do and helped me a lot to, like you well described. We stress is not gonna go away, anxiety is not gonna go away. We are not but we are responsible to manage the anxiety. We're responsible to manage the stress. Become the levels went so high, and going for a walk is one of the thing for my girlfriend. For example, she loves to swim. Yeah, and that's helped her a lot to stay calm, to stay happy, to release stress. Right. The So tell us, there is any direct relation with sports, or for example, I go to dance as well,
Yeah.
and I love, I dance salsa. I go there and dance salsa, and this fun and these happenings, my girlfriend also dance, right? So how direct is directly, or maybe has to be done with because that if you practice sports, then you are fitter. Because you're fitter, you have less fat in your body, and that also enhance your defense, and that help you. So what is it I'm asking you this question because I'm aware that you're an athlete, a former athlete. So tell us your view related sports, or let's not call it. Maybe somebody don't like to do sport, but maybe, I don't know, they like music and they prefer to go to a concert or a theater. Or so, how related is managing the stress? Number one, I would like to know your expert opinion in the relating stress with the sports, and then after stress with other activity that is not sport. How helpful this is.
Yeah, no, I mean that this is a great question. Great question. And so what I hear you saying too is like using the term sport, but really what I would say is it's more of a like, how do we move our bodies, and how are we active? And of course, like if somebody is in sport, whether that be they're an elite athlete or they're a recreational athlete, to your point, there's going to be a level of fitness. Because they're training in that regard. But there's many people that are not in a sport. I love that you do dance, that you do salsa. So much fun. Goes back to that, like, let's have fun, right? Anytime I'm working with somebody and let's say they identify as a couch potato, I'm like, okay, well, what do you like doing? Like, let's not talk about exercise. In my office, when I'm speaking with people, I'm like, we don't use the word exercise because it is associated with certain things, and it usually isn't positive for a lot of people. So what do you enjoy doing? I was working with somebody recently and they're like, I love like kayaking. Awesome. Let's do it. Well, we live in Chicago, so you're not going to kayak in January, but there are other ways you like to be outdoors. You like to dance. So we're figuring out like, how do you like to be in your body? How do you like to your body? And when you're doing it, how are you like feeling alive and enjoying yourself? If that's walking, fantastic. If it's running, cool, right? If it's, I don't know, archery, I love it, right? Whatever it is, there's no judgment on that. Just get out and do it. But there is tons of research on the effects of activity and stress on the body. So the first thing, and really importantly, is that when you move your body and you're getting your heart rate up, your body it starts to your endorphins are triggered, and endorphins are basically like natural happy hormones. And so the more somebody is, engaging in those things, that can be a really protective factor. Also, however you're moving your body, it can be a stress reliever. So it's not unusual when I've done this twice this week with people where they've had a lot of stress, but their stress is being expressed sort of like in an agitated, irritable kind of nature. And so one of the things that we've done is we're pairing the exercise. I just said the forbidden word, but we're pairing their activity with that emotion. So 2 people that I've worked with just this week, we've gotten them into like boxing classes or some other type of activity that's going to be a little bit like more kind of aggressive, right? So because they're really wanting to discharge some of this irritability, but do it in a productive way. So you're moving your body, you're getting those endorphins out. The other thing is when you're moving your body, you sleep better, you tend to eat a little better. Maybe not always, but many times people find like when they're more active, they naturally drink more water or they want to eat, they're wanting to eat healthier because it makes them feel better. So it can be a domino effect. And I'm not saying that this is like a full on guarantee kind of thing, right? But the odds go up. It also gets you, if, for example, you like salsa and you said your girlfriend dances too, you may be doing that together, which is fun. And it's, you're having quality time together. It presents opportunities to have other things happen besides just sitting on your couch feeling sad or depressed or anxious or whatever it is. If we keep doing what we're doing, we've all heard this adage, we're going to keep getting what we always got. But if you do something different, you open the door for other opportunities to present themselves. And you may learn, you may meet new people, you may learn a new way of engaging in activity that you didn't know before. And so it's a domino effect.
Yeah. And then, Michelle, so if people are in love with our conversation and they want to know more about what you do and how people can find you, how this process works.
Sure. So wait, they want to know more about what I do, you said?
Yes. So how can they find you? How this process works? Do you have any website, any LinkedIn?
I currently do not have a website. That is in the works. So, in the next few months that will come up. I do have a LinkedIn. I believe I might have sent that to you. So just Dr. Michelle Montero. And then it's my email. Everything that I do has been word of mouth up to this point, which has been.
What's your email? What's your email?
Dr. Michelle Montero @gmail. The doctor is Dr.
Okay, very good. So here you are for all of you following Entrepreneurs are Leaders. That's been fantastic, Michelle. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for do what you do, right? Because that literally can save life, and I hope that this, especially for entrepreneurs listening the broadcast, right, be aware that stress is an illness. It has to be managed. Never gonna go away. Like Michelle said, same with anxiety. We're gonna have to manage it and seek for help and deal with it. Before it comes worse. So thank you so much, and for all of you following the broadcast, see you in our next episode. How great entrepreneurs like Michelle that are doing businesses to make the world a better place. Bye for now.
Follow us for more on charismatic speaking, leadership, exponential business growth, branding, marketing, strategies designed to help you monetize your knowledge, find true happiness, and manifest your goals and dreams.